Welcome to Candid Conversation number 677. Today's question: does the Bible really teach monogamy? It's just, you go back 100 years, no one would ever ask that question. It was obvious that, and everybody knew back then that a man and a woman did not have sex before marriage, and when they would court each other with the intention of seeing if they were to get married, and they would spend their entire lives together till death do us part. That was that people knew that's what you did, and if you did anything different, you would be considered promiscuous. You would be, especially, and the main reason why is, you go back, and this is really in the country where you'd see this more, because men and women have different minds, different physical bodies, different skill sets, basically. And when you're on a farm, the man's body is more geared toward the hard labor out in the field, and the woman's mindset and capabilities are geared more toward raising children. I mean, they can feed. They're the ones that give birth to children from their own bodies. They're the ones that feed children from their own bodies. And they have a monthly time when they, without what they do today with the wearing of things to protect the bleeding from occurring, they would have to stay home because they would bleed every single month for a period of time. And of course they still do that, but now they have those things that women can wear, and it's hidden and you don't know it, so they can go about working. But basically, God's telling the woman to stay home. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If she's the one who gives birth, she's the one who feeds the baby from her own body, and once a month she is bleeding. All of that is intended to keep her out of going out and working hard, working at a job. She's got enough to do raising the kids at home, and also taking care of the husband, because while the husband is out in the field working hard, there's a lot of things that have to be done in the house. Taking care of the kids is primarily the one teaching the kids, training them up in the way they should go. Proverbs says, train up a child in the way he should go. The way he should go is the Lord Jesus Christ, when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Train him up in the way he should go, in Jesus Christ. That's primarily the responsibility of the woman, because the man is out there in the field working to try to put food on the table and keep, be able to pay all the bills. And so the woman is training up the children. She's taking care of them. She's taking care of the house. And very importantly, she's up early to make breakfast, and then to make lunch, and to make dinner. When the man's out there working hard, and he gets in, he's tired and he's hungry. He doesn't need to spend an hour trying to fix food, because he's hungry now and he's tired from all that. So now the woman can do that. She's working just as hard and just as long, probably longer hours than the man. Maybe not as hard physically speaking, but longer hours, because she's got to get up first to make the breakfast. And it's not like you got a microwave. I mean, you make the breakfast from scratch. You don't go down to the store at fast food place and get breakfast. I'm talking about 100 years ago out in the country. You've got to get up early, make it yourself. Go out there and milk those cows, and get the eggs from the chicken, and slaughter the pigs. You got to do that stuff and get that food out there, cook that food, and so you can have it and have some energy for the work ahead. There's a whole lot to do around the house. But then, about 100 years ago with the Roaring 20s, everybody goes to a city. And when that happened, for the first time in the 20s, 100 years ago, 1920s, first time the majority of Americans lived in a city rather than out in the country. And then what the city does is it quickly takes away the role of the woman. Well, now if you're in a city, you got an apartment, there's nothing to do around the house. You don't own it. And so then the women start working. And now, back in the country, let's say a man and a woman, when they didn't go on a date just to have fun. It wasn't a hookup like they talk about today. None of that stuff. You gotta, you be serious about it. And if a man slept with a woman, well, he better marry her, or else her brothers are going to come after that guy, and he's not going to be around that much longer. And if a woman, the wife, cheated on the man, well, she would be shunned. She'd be kicked out of that house, and then she don't have any place to go. So, families and society protected, encouraged a monogamous relationship between a man and a woman for their entire lives. If you had sex, you were married as far as they're concerned, and you better get married or else that man's going to be killed, or he's going to be seriously injured. He's going to be shunned from the community there, and now he's going to have to go somewhere else and live as a vagabond, or go somewhere else and live somewhere. My great-grandfather was a drunk, and he had to go from place to place because he'd show up drunk at work, lose his job. Well, then he'd move the family somewhere else, and he lost his job. That's why my grandfather started working full-time at the age of 14, dropped out of school. He only graduated the 5th grade. He is too busy working to go to school because he had to support the family because of his father. But today you look at the women, the role of the woman is taken away. First, you have contraceptives. So now sex isn't something that results in pregnancy. Pregnancy and sex is taken away. The pleasure is separated from the responsibility. So now you can just sleep with whoever you want, have your contraceptives, and you won't get pregnant. And the monthly period, well, that still happens. They haven't taken that away, but they have protection where they can wear things so it's not, so that a woman can go and work full time and not have to be off a week every month. And so if you're just out there having fun, well, then why do you have a monogamous relationship? In the city, a man, and in the country, a man and a woman need to be married and stay married, and you got to have kids because they're going to help on the farm and they're going to take care of you when you're older. So the woman would be responsible for having the kids and raising them up, teaching them in the way they should go, and then she's got to take care of all the stuff around the house. Well, if you're in the city and you're just renting, which a lot of people do nowadays, there's not much to take care around the house. And even if you own a place, about all you're doing is mowing the grass, maybe doing a little landscaping, but you're not really working for food. You don't have a bunch of cows and chickens to get meat, or a garden to have fruits and vegetables, because you go to a job that's not at the house where you make enough money to buy all that stuff. So it's all outsourced. It's heavily specialized. So you do a job like I do. I pay bills all day. That's my job. And they're not my bills. They're the company's bills. And so then I make enough money to go out, buy my own clothes. I don't have to make clothes. I don't have to sew clothes. Buy my own clothes. Buy my own food. There isn't really much to take care around the house because I don't have to get everything from my house. Because I get money, and then I can buy stuff from these other stores. And so when you do that, then the use of the woman, as far as raising kids, taking care of the house, making meals, is largely eliminated. So now she's just a sex object to the man. And so what do you know? Back 100 years ago, if a woman wore makeup out in the country, well, the only women who wore makeup out in the country in the 1920s were prostitutes. It's the only people. The only women who would wear a dress that would show off any part of their legs were prostitutes. But now, every woman wears lipstick, at least about every woman, and they all show off their skin, because now they don't have the use anymore of raising kids and taking care of things around the house, sewing the clothes, making meals, all the things that are involved in running a farm. That's a full-time job. You don't have that anymore, because you're not having kids, because you don't have because you have contraceptives. You don't have a husband, because sex is for pleasure. You're not raising a family. You're not building a lifelong relationship. You don't need kids to take care of you after you're too old or too physically not able to work. So you don't have kids. You don't get married. You don't have a farm to take care of. You just go out and buy everything. Even if you mow the grass, you probably got somebody to do that for you. So you don't really you just do a job. So now the woman goes to work, does a job, because she doesn't have anything to do at the house. And she doesn't have a man that she's married to for 50 years. So now she's got to go out and find a man. So she's a sex object. So that's why they're wearing makeup and showing off their skin. And they got to do all these things to make themselves physically attractive to men. I know the media will tell you that they're just like men, and it's not that, but the human nature is what it is. The woman tries to make herself attractive to men, and men try to find attractive women. That's just built into our DNA. God made us that way. And so even though the media tries to tell you otherwise, that's just not, it's the case. You can't believe what the media says about it. And so what it's resulted in is, 100 years ago, like I said, you're out in the country, it was obvious to everybody that a man and a woman, what you do, you don't just go on a date just to have sex, and then when you get tired of sleeping with that person, you go on and date somebody else and sleep with them. But they understood that the two become one flesh in the sexual relationship. And so you would only have sex with one person your entire life. And that's that monogamous relationship. And the reason is because that's how you have a family unit. That's how families are made. Is you have a man and a woman not related get together, have sex. Now they are a family. God says the two have become one, so they're a family. And then they have kids, and then they grow old, and the kids help take care of them, and the kids, they go out and get married. And so you just have this continual generation after generation. That's how the family unit works. And God does that to keep sin nature at check, because women and men think differently. And so it was obvious. If a woman was known for sleeping with more, if a woman slept with a man when she was a teenager, well, then that man was expected to marry her, or else he'd be killed or he'd be injured. So the brothers of that woman would do something to him. And if the woman wouldn't get married after having sex for one time, well, now no man's going to want to marry her now because she sleeps around. That woman won't just be for that man. She could cheat on him and leave. So really, she can't find she'll have a hard time living, because if she don't have a man that she's married to, well, then she doesn't have a house and kids. She doesn't have her support, and her job is to take care of the man and the kids in the house. And so if she's sleeping around, she doesn't have a man to take care of. And so that's why it was obvious, the society, the way God intended it, built it where it was obvious that a monogamous relationship was what was needed, what was required, and everything worked fine that way. But now, once the city comes along, and now you just do a job for your entire day, now everything's outsourced, and so sex is outsourced too. Just like you're not making meals at home and doing things at home, sewing your own clothes, making your own meals, doing things at home, you're also not having sex at home. You're also sleeping around, because now it's, instead of being a way to unify a man and a woman and to create a family and to have that stability of the family for your entire life, now it's just seen as something that is pleasurable. All you're doing is seeking after pleasure. You're not seeking after stability in the things of God and having those the sin nature at check. It kept at bay through the opposite sex mind in the house, telling you, keeping your sin nature, keeping you from doing those awful things that you would do in your sin nature. And so it's obvious from the Bible, yeah, God intended it. When you get away from one man and one woman being married their entire lives, when you get away from that, then the whole society falls apart. Because now if I'm a single man, well, then I've got that sin nature. Now, of course, as Paul says, I just lost my wife. I'm a widower. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7, it's best for a man or for a woman to remain unmarried, because now I don't have to care for the worldly things of my wife. I don't have to worry about pleasing her flesh, but I can spend that time devoted to the Lord. And the same thing for the woman. She doesn't have to worry about pleasing her husband. She can devote her time to the Lord. And so it's best to do that, but only when you're saved. When you're saved, it's best to stay single. 1 Corinthians 7 says, unless you burn with sexual desire, and then it's best to go ahead and get married. But then you can devote your time to the Lord. But if you're an unbeliever and you're not reading your Bible, you're not allowing Christ to live in you, which is the majority of people. I mean, we're talking about over 99% of the population either is an unbeliever or they're saved and they don't allow Christ to live in them. Very rare does people follow God's word nowadays. So, in that case, what it does, it keeps society from falling apart. A man and a woman get together, get married, and then they keep the other person, sin nature, in check. The man isn't going to go sleep with a prostitute or go to a strip club or go get drunk at night. The woman isn't going to be involved in idle gossip, tearing people down with her words, and other things that those single women do, because they would be in danger of losing their spouses. For the men, be in danger of losing their wife because they're cheating on her. And the woman would be in danger of losing her husband because she's not taking care of him. She's busy with idle gossip and different things. So what it does is it keeps the sin nature for man is really to go after sexual sin and drunkenness, pretty much, is what his sin nature is going after. And the woman's sin nature is going after emotional type strain. Emotional infidelity is what it is, both with the opposite sex and with the same sex, in terms of gossip and talking about different things. That's why men, when they go into sexual sin, they look at pornography, but women go into just as bad a sexual sin for them when they read romance novels. Either way, their mind is on sexual pleasure rather than on things of God. And those, even if you're unmarried, even if you're an unbeliever, and you're unmarried, those are the sins that you're likely to go with. Now, of course, if you let Christ live in you, those things aren't going to be an issue. But if you don't let Christ live in you, and you're not saved, which is over 99% of the population, then the result is that you're going to end up catering to your sin nature, because the opposite sex is not going to keep your sin nature in check, and then the result is society crumbles. And so the monogamous relationship, while it seems completely foreign to people today, is something established by God to keep society functioning and to keep the sin nature from running rampant. You look at Sodom and Gomorrah, what happened there? You had a big city, so work was specialized, and then they got away from marriage, and then the result was they got into sodomy, and now the city had to be destroyed. No one would be saved there, because all they do is follow after pleasures. That's why you have sodomy increasing so much in the last 20, 30 years, is because sexual pleasure is meant naturally to be between a man and a woman. But the problem with that is the woman thinks differently from the man, and so they're going to keep your sin nature in check. And so you get to sexual pleasure, but now you can't do your other lust. The man can't go and sleep with prostitutes or go to the bar, and the woman can't be reading romance novels and gossiping with her women friends. Can't be doing that. So what you do is you go with the same sex. So then you get to sexual pleasure with the same sex, and you're of the same mind. So then you could do your sin nature together. And if you do that, then what you've done is you've abandoned God's natural plan, and all you're doing is following after pleasure. And if that's all you care about, then you're not going to be saved. 2 Timothy 3 talks about in the last days perilous times shall come. It says, men shall be lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. So that means if the gospel is preached to somebody who is involved in just following pleasure, then they're not going to believe that gospel. Romans 1, the last thing there that you see that happens with the person who has rejected God is he gets into sodomy. And then the next thing it says God gave him over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. And so they're beyond, once you got that reprobate mind, you're just filled with all unrighteousness and all ungodliness. There's nothing else you can do. It's nothing else God can do. And so he had to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And pretty soon, he says, the days at Jesus' second coming, the days here are going to be like Noah's day and like the days of Lot. So you will have Sodom and Gomorrah in the world. And Jesus Christ will come back and destroy it because, as he says in Matthew 24, if he doesn't cut the time short, no flesh would be saved. So right there. So does the Bible teach monogamy? Absolutely. And if you get away from that, a man and a woman being married for their entire lives and having that family unit, eventually it leads to the society being destroyed, sin taking over, reprobate minds, no one being saved, and every person just being utterly useless to the point where God has to destroy them and start all over. And so, yeah, today it seems like a foreign concept because people don't care about God. They just love pleasure. So they're saying, well, I should be able to sleep with whoever I want. Well, you do that, and you're useless. You're utterly useless in the spirit realm because all you're doing is serving pleasure rather than serving God. Thanks for watching.